Welcome to Layer the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, 3 bands in one album that I was really excited for, really wanted to get into, was hoping I was going to get into them, was thinking I was going to get into them, was going to get into the bands, was going to get into the album, but then was really disappointed. Now, of course, there's a lot of records that come out that I don't like, but I thought it would be fun to take bands and albums that I really wanted to like, I thought I was going to like, but then they just came up way, way short for me. All right, some of these I have on CD, some of them I don't. I just couldn't be bothered to go and try to find them. My CDs are a mess. I don't have any of these on vinyl. Number 1, British Lion. This was Steve Harris's solo band, and when I heard about it, I thought, okay, wasn't sure what we were going to get, but I know Steve's influences. I know he's a huge 70s progressive rock, hard rock guy, you know, UFO, Genesis, Jethro Tull. So I was expecting something proggish. I was expecting something with a lot of bass playing on it. I'm a bass player. Steve Harris is one of my favorite bass players. And I sort of lament that in the last, really with the reunion era of the band, the Rob era, return of Bruce, it seems like Steve, his bass isn't as active as it was on the earlier stuff where he was all over playing little fills and stuff like that. And I really missed that. And I thought, all right, British Lion, we're going to get this. This is going to be like, in my mind, I was thinking it's going to be like early Iron Maiden, like the first 2 Iron Maiden records. Not as heavy as that. It's going to be like 70s rock, kind of stripped down, short songs, tons of bass way up front, lots of bass playing in it, maybe like some progressive type stuff with a lot of changes and things like that. That's really what I was expecting. And I should have been more cautious and saw this as red flags that during the reunion era of Maiden, especially on the, not Senjutsu, I actually think some of Steve's songs on Senjutsu are really strong, but the albums before that, like Final Frontier and Book of Souls, I felt like Steve's songwriting has dropped, and my favorite songwriters in Iron Maiden at the moment are Bruce and Adrian. So I should have seen that as a red flag, but it caught me off guard. I bought the record. I was extremely disappointed in it. There was none of the exciting, over-the-top, upfront bass playing that I was expecting. The songs were not as heavy as I was expecting. I didn't really care for the vocal. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I actually liked the vocalist. I wasn't expecting it to be like Iron Maiden. I knew it was going to be different. And I actually kind of liked the vocalist. I thought it was a fresh take. His voice is very mellow and relaxed. I was okay with that. But what I didn't care for was the songs. The songs were just way too straightforward, kind of rock. It didn't have any of the excitement or energy of like UFO. It didn't have any progressive elements in it, at least that I heard. I haven't listened to this CD since I got it. I listened to it a bunch of times. I tried, just couldn't get into it, put it aside. I've seen British Lion live. It comes across a little bit better in a live setting, but it still just left me disappointed with where my expectations were. It just didn't meet any of them. It didn't rock as hard as I wanted it to. It wasn't as progressive like I wanted it. Okay, so if it wasn't going to be progressive, maybe it was going to rock really hard. Well, it didn't do that either. The bass wasn't up front the way I wanted it to. It just left me totally flat. The second one, a little bit better, but it just doesn't interest me. Missed the mark for me in many ways. I applaud Steve for doing this type of thing, going out on the road. I saw him in a club, like a very small club, and I applaud him for a guy that can play the biggest stages in the world, and now he's traveling around playing clubs. Hats off for him for that, but it just didn't work for me. Plus the mix on that first British Lion record, in my opinion, is a mess. It's just all over the place. Some songs, it's like it wasn't mastered properly. Some songs are louder than others. Some songs are really bright. Some songs are really dull. And I know the story behind the record. It was recorded and worked on over a very long period of time, but still, it could have been sonically mastered better. Okay, next is so that was a band that I was disappointed in. Here's another band that I was disappointed in and was excited for was Red Dragon Cartel with Jakey Lee. Love Jakey Lee. I love Bark at the Moon. I love The Ultimate Sin. I love the Badlands. Love Jake's playing. Was disappointed that Jake had disappeared from the scene for so long. Was super happy to see him back. Should have saw the warning signs, the flags again here when he put this band together and he went out. It was, I don't remember exactly how this all worked out, but I just remember it being a mess. Seeing videos of him performing for the first time with this band before the album was out, and it was just a mess. The singer, I can't remember exactly now what the deal was. The singer didn't work out or something, didn't sound good. He replaced the singer right away. And it was just a mess. Like the band seemed like it was a mess. It seemed like they were under-rehearsed. It was just very underwhelming. I remember watching those videos expecting it to just be like jumping out at me like, okay, we're back here with this great guitar playing from Jake. And it just didn't, the band just didn't click or something. It just didn't work. And when the album came out, it didn't work for me either. I didn't like the mix of the record. It's a loudness wars casualty. I didn't like the songs. It was sort of stuck somewhere between. It didn't have that gritty, earthy, heavy rockin' 70s blues vibe to it like Badlands did. I mean, Ray Gillen, an amazing singer, tough guy to live up to. But it didn't have that. It also didn't have enough of the... it was sort of stuck somewhere between that and like The Ultimate Sin, and it just didn't have what I liked about either of those, Badlands or The Ultimate Sin. It was just the songs didn't work. And I believe the first album, it had different singers on it. That didn't work. The second record didn't work for me either. The mix is bad. I don't care for the songwriting. There's some cool stuff on it. There's some cool riffs, but there just doesn't seem to be any chemistry. The guitar sound was a big disappointment for me. Great playing, but the songs just didn't work. The mix didn't work. The guitar sound didn't work for me. So just a big, big disappointment for me. Okay, this one was an album, and it was Tool's Fear Inoculum. I really, really liked Tool when they were putting out their records, bought like Lateralists and stuff the day it came out. And I remember before Fear Inoculum came out, Tool was not on any of the streaming services. And I have all their stuff on CD, but hadn't listened to it in ages. I saw it was coming on streaming, and I thought, oh wow, this is going to be really cool. Haven't listened to Tool in ages. I'll be able to listen to them when I'm out going for walks and riding my bike and stuff like that. And I was really thinking like, oh man, I'm going to go down a Tool wormhole here. Like this is just going to remind me of how much I liked them back in the day. It's going to take me back to the early 2000s. And I'm going to just really get into this. I see myself totally getting into this, and it's going to lead up to the new record, and it's going to be this big, like, dramatic, the new album's going to come out, and I'm going to be so into them and everything. And this should have been my warning flags here. Moral to the story here. Listen to the warning flags. Watch those flags here when you see them come up. When I was listening to this stuff on streaming, I was like, whoa, this isn't quite as good as I remember it. I'm not as excited about these older Tool albums as I remembered them. I just wasn't into it. I found it kind of boring. And then Fear Inoculum came out, got it as soon as it came out. And it was kind of cool, but it was one of these CDs, like I bought it, I listened to it, and then it was like I forgot that I even had it. It was like I stumbled across it in my car or something, and I was like, whoa, I forgot that I had this. I just like completely forgot about them. And I guess that says about the album, it just made no real impression on me. It felt kind of dated. Nothing grabbed me. The songs felt long, they felt drony and boring, and I didn't hate it, but it just... man, my expectations, and I was nervous because as I listened to their back catalog on streaming, I was kind of like, uh-oh, I don't like this stuff as much as I remember liking it. And that's going to be the topic for another video, bands that I was really into and then just all of a sudden didn't like them anymore and never came back to them. And spoiler alert, Tool's going to be one of them, so I won't get too into it. But Fear Inoculum, I think I'm pronouncing that right, it just didn't do anything for me. It just left me. Again, I forgot that I even had the CD the CD there. Okay, now number 4 for me is a band. It's a band, but they're not a new band, and it was maybe the biggest disappointment for me because I am such a fan of this band, and it's Rainbow. And when Rainbow was putting the band back together and they were playing some shows and there was talk or hope maybe that they would release a studio record, I remember first being disappointed that they didn't reach out to Joe Lynn Turner, that he wasn't involved, because he's a guy that seemed like he would be totally into that. Was whenever you heard him in the press talking, he was always, I would love to do, some more Rainbow stuff. Richie landed up using guys from his Renaissance band Blackmore's Night, and he brought in the singer, I forget his name, Rich Romero. I forget what his first name is. Amazing singer, fantastic singer. But when I saw the clips of the band live, they played some big festivals, and I was almost tempted to fly over to Europe to see this, because again, I absolutely love Rainbow, and I always said if there's a Rainbow reunion, I would go anywhere in the world to see it. Well, thank goodness I didn't, because when I saw the clips of the band, it just was like, wow, man, there was no energy, no chemistry. It's a perfect example of, you can have good players in a band. It's sort of like, I'm a hockey fan, I'm going to make a hockey analogy. Sometimes there's chemistry on a hockey team, and guys fill certain roles on the team, and they just click and they work together. One guy's a passer, one guy's a shooter, and it just all sort of clicks. And when you got a team with a nice chemistry across all the lines, you can go really far. It's the same thing with a band. There's a certain chemistry there, and I would have thought that, okay, these guys are all good players. They should be able to pull it off. Jens Johansson was on keyboards. He sounded really good, but everybody else, man, it just didn't click. The drummer, the bass player, there was just no energy. It was like Blackmore's Night playing Rainbow songs, and maybe Richie has been so far away from the hard rock thing for so long that it's just foreign to him at this point, and he just couldn't seem to muster up the energy on the guitar. And I remember there's a clip of them doing Stargazer, and they just train wreck the intro. There's like that line coming down before the main riff comes back in, and Richie just fumbles it, he messes up, the band messes up, it's a train wreck, and it just feels like, whoa, like they're way under rehearsed, that the band, there's no chemistry, the drummer is just not hitting hard enough. I mean, obviously Cozy Powell wasn't alive at that point, but this drummer just didn't come anywhere close to any of the drummers that were ever in Rainbow. The bass player just wasn't locked in, or it just didn't have any energy. It felt so flat. It felt so lifeless. Even Richie seemed somewhat not engaged in it. His guitar sound really wasn't there. Jens Johansson, to his credit, he sounded good. And the singer, I should have looked up his name before I started this. Is it Richie Romero? He sounded amazing, and he was giving it his all and everything, but it just didn't click. It just didn't feel right. And they actually recorded a song that I remember being so underwhelmed by it. It sounded like a drum machine. It was produced really poorly, like somebody just discovered GarageBand on their computer and they tried to record something, and it was so flat, it was so boring, it was so undercooked. It felt like an incomplete song, and it just was like, man, please don't release a record, because this is just coming up so low energy, so underwhelming, that I was like, just don't release an album. Which is something that, I would have never have said years ago, because I so love Rainbow and so would love Rainbow to get back together. If they had brought in Bob Daisley and Joe Lynn Turner, maybe Bobby Rondinelli, he was in the band, later on, or just a drummer that had the proper feel for it. Jens Johansson, amazing keyboard player, I would have kept him. It just missed the mark in so many ways, and it was so disappointing to me, because I was such a Rainbow fan, and here in my mind I was thinking, they're going to release a record, they're going to tour the US, I'm going to get to hear all these old classics like Stargazer and Spotlight Kid and all this stuff, and then I was just like, please don't play any more shows, please don't release any music, So disappointing. All right, there you go. There's 4 bands for me that I was completely disappointed in. You know what? I'm calling an audible here. I'm going to throw in another one. I wasn't planning on this, and it just occurred to me. Geezer Butler's solo bands, GZR. They were another band that I was so disappointed in when those records came out. I was expecting, when I heard Geezer was releasing solo stuff in the 90s, I was thinking, okay, this is, I don't know why in my mind I thought like Geezer's awesome, like Spiral Architect type lyrics. That Geezer's going to release this 70s sounding, like the song Spiral Architect or Hole in the Sky. It's going to have this 70s vibe to it. And no, Geezer, I mean, to his credit, he put out a record. He tried to put out a really heavy record, and the albums are really heavy, but the vocal style on it didn't work for me. It's sort of like that shouty 90s kind of, the guy from Fear Factory was on one of them, and it just doesn't work for me. There wasn't enough bass on it for me, cool bass playing, and the songs were just sort of that sound, that sort of Pantera, Fear Factory, shouty, screaming type of vocals that didn't work for me. All right, there you go. I was going to do 4 or 5 there. Let me know some bands, newer bands or albums that you were really excited for, that when they came out, you were really disappointed. Let me know in the comments down below. Till we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.